Hello, everybody. Whether you're here watching us stream live or you are watching the replay, thank you so much for being here. It's literally all about talking about the Chucky movie franchise, even that more recent reboot. And it was all just, as a way for me to finally watch something that, I see him, his cute little face at the Spirit Halloween stores. He's an iconic villain up there with Freddy and Michael and Ghostface. Can you call yourself a horror fan, Michelle, if you've never seen a Chucky movie?
No, and I'll talk about that because I feel like the Chucky franchise really encapsulates what it's like to be a horror fan.
Absolutely. The highs, the lows. It's like literally over 3 decades. And then you have the ongoing movies, the TV show series, where I think I'm still trying to figure out through watching this, like, was that something I want to invest in? Because there are like 3 seasons at this point. So we will chat. So let us know who's hanging with us. If you are here with us live, be sure to say hi in the chat. And then if you are watching the replay, let us know that you're here with us. But yeah, Michelle, let us know a little bit about you, your channel. Nothing too wild, just kind of like where you're coming from when it comes to your relationship to Chucky. Before I asked you, like, would you mind like hanging out with me chatting about these things? But I think you're really excited to do it.
Yeah. So I'm a huge horror fan. I've been a huge horror fan my whole life. Literally ever since I have memory, horror has been a part of my life. And well, in my YouTube channel, I talk mostly about books, but in general, horror stuff. And the reason I was so excited to do this is because Chucky was actually the first horror movie I ever watched. I was a tiny little baby girl, and they just played it on TV, and I happened to watch it, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be watching this, but I was fascinated. So obviously,
Wait,
I have
how old do you think you were when you first watched Chucky in the room with adults?
Probably 5 or 6. Couldn't have been any older. And
That's
yeah, I just found
hilariously young.
yes. I found it fascinating, and I didn't find it scary. I just knew there was something wrong about me watching like the violent parts, like the deaths and stuff. But I don't know. I think at that age I couldn't really grasp the horror of it all. For me, it was just really funny.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's one thing I really love about this franchise. It's hilarious. Like,
Yes.
it's so hilarious, and it starts as early as, like, the '80s, and it goes into the '90s. Like, there's, 1 or 2 movies that are in the '90s, but then I think mostly,
Yeah.
like, 2010s
Yeah.
is where we pick up. Like, it's funny how, like, there's actually a timeline of the movie that's not as aligned with actually the timeline of making it. So there's a story
Yeah.
timeline, and then there's the making of the actual movie timeline. So you have to like kind of do research. I was listening to people talk about that. I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't know that movie happened 6 months after that one, but then like
Yeah.
10 years after that. Like it's this whole universe. But no matter what, like the references still hit. Like things they're talking about in the '90s, magically like making a Martha Stewart joke and
Right.
foiling that. Yeah, with like Tiffany and her like untraditional like ways of being like a woman, right? Being like this
Yes.
murderer.
Yes. Yes.
Um I think that it still hits. So it's a very, very funny series.
Yeah, I think it has maintained relevancy in like a very strange way, in a very curious way. And as we mentioned, it definitely has its highs and lows, but I think it's really been going strong for so long. So I think yeah, it's a really special franchise in the horror genre, in my opinion.
I 100% agree. And I think something like we should maybe come back to at the very end is like why we think it's always hitting with audiences over like the span of more than 3 decades. That's major. And I think it probably has a lot to do with one person primarily being like the spearhead
Yes.
for this character. So we'll talk more
And
about that.
and also kind of like maintaining the cast. So you can see that everyone in the cast is really invested in the franchise because it's not easy to get people to appear in a sequel that's happening 10 years later, even maybe more than 20 years later. But everyone just seems really invested in making it work and keeping it fresh. So also, I just have the feeling that the people involved are really passionate about the project. And I think that really shows through.
Absolutely, 100% agree. Even, like, the little scenes at the end, like the end credit scenes where you can, like, have that little moment. It's so small, but that
Yeah,
they're able to, like, harken back to another character. It's really fun. It makes you feel like you, like, you just know the universe so well. You know that
yeah.
character even, like, 5 movies later. So that's really cool. So we have Cool Gamer in the house with us. Hello. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for hanging out with us. And Halco is giving us some compliments on our
Thank
adorable
you.
shirts. Awesome. Thanks so much for being here. And then anybody else who pops in the chat, let us know like what you're up to, what you're doing, if you're well versed in the Chucky world, or if you're kind of like newer to it. And then when it comes to your relationship to Chucky before you decided to watch the entire franchise, was there anything else that you kind of thought of when you thought of Chucky? Any kind of references? Like, why watch the entire series? What was your kind of motivation for that?
I think first of all because I remember watching Chucky 1, 2, and 3 way back when, as I said, as a kid and even growing up a little bit, I was really into Chucky. But then many years went by, and I didn't really think of Chucky ever again until the reboot, the 2019 reboot. And I liked that, but once you brought it up, I realized that one, it's been ages since I watched the kind of like the older movies, and then I never watched the more recent ones, the ones in the 2010s, and I was just like really curious to see how that one's held up, because usually sequels, I mean, once you reach after the fourth or fifth movie in a franchise, they tend to be not very good. So I was like really curious to see, and we'll get into that conversation later. I don't want to spoil if I was satisfied with them or not.
Yes, we have to build that suspense.
Yeah.
Um, I I just felt like when I was thinking about my 2024 hobby goals, which oftentimes align with like horror, which is one of my favorite genres, I was thinking about like what are some things that I just feel like super interested in,
Mhm.
and I am somebody who kind of maybe reads a little bit more than I watch, and I felt like I always found like there was Chucky everywhere. Like Chucky, like whether it's Etsy, whether it's like conventional spirit Halloween with actually like licensed merchandise, it is such a merchandised, commodified little face. And
Yeah.
I fell to the propaganda. Like I have that like influence felt and activated. And I was actually shocked to find that I've never watched any Chucky movie except the reboot. When I was
Mm,
watching the most
wow.
recent like reboot, I was like, wait, this is so familiar. I don't know when or
Yeah.
how or why, but I've seen this movie
Yeah.
before. But I totally forgot that I've seen it. So
Yeah.
I don't know what that was about. I really don't. And we have some other folks who've come into the chat. So excited. And also, any questions that I ask Michelle, you all are invited in the chat to respond. So kind of let that be your standing invitation. Anything I have on like a little banner that I ask, please feel free to write in the chat. I know sometimes I watch live streams and I'm doing the dishes or I'm like kind of, just listening and doing other stuff. That's totally cool. But then there's other days where I'm like, ooh, I have opinions, I have thoughts, and I want to be able to chat back. So if you're leaving like multiple things in the chat, it's totally cool. That's the whole point of like being able to have this space with this channel, is just to like nerd out with people who are
We
really
want to
into that.
know.
We do, yes. So feel free, whether it's in the comments during the replay or now in the chat, feel free. Any question we ask, definitely include your thoughts. And we have Liz hanging out with us as well. I love Tiffany, so I'm so glad you mentioned Tiffany in this, Liz, because this is not just a Chucky show. This is also
No.
Tiffany.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are pro Tiffany and all of her rights and all of her wrongs. Because there's a lot of wrongs.
Mm.
Helco mentioned that their favorite is part 2. I like how Kyle helps Andy, kind of like Rachel with Jamie in Halloween 4. Ooh, okay. It'd be interesting to see where me and Michelle line up with our thoughts on Child's Play 2. Because
Yes.
no spoilers, but I really enjoyed that one too. So I guess I kind of spoiled it. And Liz has seen them all back in the day. but has slowly been making her way back to them for a project. I think he holds up better than Jason, to be honest. That's such a great point, Liz, because this is one of those franchises that, again, I've already mentioned this. It's like propped up there with Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween, Friday the 13th. Like, is there anything else that's like a franchise, Michelle, you can think of that's like, because then there's Child's Play right up there. Anything else you feel like is like canon for villains?
I think
Scream. Scream.
Oh, Scream for sure. Yeah. Yeah, a good one with like the instantly recognizable villain, I guess.
Exactly. Yes. So I feel like I've seen the most recent reboots of Halloween. I've only seen the first Friday the 13th, only the first Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah. I've seen all of the Screams.
I need to rewatch Scream.
Yes, absolutely. It's probably been like some time. I am so behind on like a lot of those franchises. So dividing and conquering, I think, is my plan. I'd be curious with Nightmare on Elm's. No, Friday the 13th. I got to get my villains right with Jason. Yeah, how that lands and what that looks like. Have you seen any of those in Friday the 13th?
Not. I honestly stopped following the reboots and sequels. Again, it's movies that I used to watch way back when. I think out of all of those, I really enjoyed Friday the 13th. I think that's the one I watched the most. I was never a super fan of Halloween, to be honest, or the Freddy Krueger ones. I do enjoy Scream, so that's one I want to rewatch.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. That makes sense. Yeah, I feel like I'm more interested in the villains, like that we named. I feel like Chucky, it makes sense why I really started to go through the entire franchise for that one, because he as just this like archittype that I learn and know about through merchandise.
Yeah. He has such a marketable face.
So marketable.
I mean, look at that. Yeah.
So cute. Yeah. He's the one that just most appealed to me out of all of them. Like, he just has so much more of a personality, a sense of humor. Charisma sets him apart. Like, a Ghostface could be anyone, which, I mean, that's scary, right? But like, not somebody that's personable to me.
Yeah. And there's a key thing that I'm going to mention once we start talking into the movies. That was the first impression when I watched the original Child's Play. One thing came to mind that made me think that this franchise was going to be amazing. But I'll say that when we get there.
Okay. Gotcha. Yes. So all this to say that Liz made me think of with this comment that Chucky is so unique because there's that humor, there's that personality, as Michelle mentioned, there's the charisma that I don't feel as connected to other villains. And I think it has a lot to do with his arc, his personal development arc that is so unique in my experience, which is pretty limited when it comes to like horror movies, that I don't really get other places. Like, there's a sense of humanity and I don't feel bad aligning myself with him because for all of his problems, there's something else that like keeps you feeling like, okay, we're kindred spirits. Like, there's a lot to be connecting over here.
It's a sympathetic villain. And I think I would even say sliding to like the anti-hero realm.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's such a good point. Hello, Melissa. Thank you so much for being here and chatting with us. Child's Play was one of the first horror movies that they watched when they were younger, and it's been my fave horror movie since then. I even named my dog Chucky when I was in high school.
Love that. Love that icon.
I love it. Yeah, so iconic. Chucky, the Chuckers, Chuckster. I love all the nicknames. Yes, I feel like this is a movie where if you were younger, like probably like teen age, you have probably like the perfect sense of humor to connect with this movie, the franchise. So good. Yes. I'm surprised I never watched it as a younger person, but it makes sense because my family mostly liked 1940s, 30s. What we now consider horror, like Universal Monsters. They weren't necessarily watching this kind of stuff, but it is super iconic. Hello, Brittany. Thank you so much for being here. Again, Child's Play was another first horror movie. Okay, maybe this is like people's gateway into horror. Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of like the toy aesthetic that really draws children in, and then people start getting killed. And you're like, okay, great.
This is not what I thought. This is not Barney. This is a very
Yeah.
different story. And also very similarly around your same age range when you first saw Child's Play.
Yeah. Amazing.
And then the ensuing trauma, it definitely scared you for a long time. Yeah, I guess I can thank Chucky for his impact. Yes, you were born on Halloween, Brittany, but then the Halloween love was solidified with your Child's Play trauma.
We're all children of Chucky.
We are, yes. I love that. I'm just an older child.
Yeah.
I found him later in life. Hello, Christine. Good morning.
Hello.
Thanks for hanging with us. Okay, are we ready, Michelle?
I'm so nervous.
Share. Oh my gosh, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings as we move forward?
I'm just scared that you're gonna not like some of the movies I've loved, and I'm ready to defend them, but I don't know. I just want you to enjoy them as much as I did.
As you should, yes. And this is, oh yeah, Brittany's mentioned it here. Yes, exactly. Children of Chucky. Yeah. We love that. Yeah, just a little caveat here. Any in the chat, folks, just let us know, you know, your thoughts too. Like if I really dislike something or Michelle really dislikes something, feel free. You are so invited to defend your case. Nothing is taking anything personally here. So it's all fun. It's all fun and games. Yes. Oh my God. Why isn't my little Chucky coming up? This is blasphemous. But yeah, so we ranked ours. The funny thing here is that Michelle doesn't know my rankings, but I know hers. So this is going to be a surprise for all of you, including Michelle. So hopefully there are some surprises here where, you know, there's some comparing and contrasting. There you are, Chucky, you elusive son of a gun. Okay. Are we ready? Okay. So while we're doing this, I'm going to take my little banner off and let's see. Got to get myself ready for Chucky. So first, we're going to start off with Michelle's ranking. I believe mine, I'll click and it'll give you a rating and it's going to go from worst to best. So feel free, Michelle, to share anything and then just let me know when to click. So let's move on forward here. With Michelle's ranking. Okay. Coming in first as the worst is Curse of Chucky. Explain yourself.
I think Curse of Chucky just made me mad. The first thing that stuck out to me is that there are some continuity errors that I cannot forgive. And at first I noticed one, but then it turns out I was confused. So let's forget about that. But there are still others that I just didn't like. And then I thought some of the ideas were good, but for me, the execution was pretty terrible. I think it's a pattern in the Chucky movies to have kind of like random characters just for them to get killed. But these ones, I didn't care. I didn't care at all. And I don't know how much detail should I go into, but there was one kill specifically where the scene dragged on for so long that I just like lost all interest. And I was like, okay, I honestly don't care. I don't care who dies. Just please, can we move on?
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. So one thing that I won't say anything about me. I just have a very curious question. What did you think about the tonal shift or the directorial cinematography atmosphere shift in this one?
I actually liked the tonal shift from the previous movies were a bit more comedic, and this one really focuses into trying to be scary again. I like the choice of setting where it's literally just everything happens within one house. I thought all of those were good ideas. And I was definitely ready to see seriousness again. But yeah, I think just the execution in the details was bad. I don't think it had the same tension that the original scary Chucky movies had. And yeah, they're just like little details that really, really made me upset.
Okay, interesting. So I see Halko's ranking in the chat. So I'm going to click a few more as we get through to Michelle's, and I want to compare like the how goes worse to yours, so we could see because I feel like there's some similarities coming up, but let's see where they all align. So the next one here, let me know if it's a huge divide or if it's like immediately right after, like they're pretty close in terms of being your least like. Oops, let me go forward. There we go. Child's Play 3. Please explain yourself.
I think I also, okay, just let me say, these are the only two movies that I don't like. All the other ones I did like, I just had to rank them. Okay. Now, Child's Play 3, I did not like it, but for very different reasons. I think Child's Play 3 is well done, well executed. Everything it set out to do, it did. The problem is that it follows the exact same formula as Child's Play 1 and 2. It's like the exact same movie, basically scene by scene, just like a different setting with different characters. So it was just tired at this point. I was just tired of seeing the same thing happening over and over and over again.
It makes so much sense. Yeah. And just for like a frame of reference, because there's a lot of movies here and maybe you've seen them, the audience has maybe seen them like way spread apart or way back when. This is the one where we follow Andy at his new school. It's like a military school. You also have the end scene taking place at like a fair carnival kind of thing. So hopefully that brings back some memories with people. Okay, gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, cool. And then moving along here, we have the Seed of Chucky.
Seed of Chucky, this was the one that I struggled the most to place because I still think about it. I'm like, do I like this movie? I mean, I like it. I like the movie, but I was like, isn't it just being delusional because I am emotionally attached to this franchise? Is this movie actually terrible? I think it's kind of bad. I'm not gonna lie, I think it's pretty bad. The settings are kind of like horrible. They're really tacky. The whole movie just looks so tacky. The sense of humor is tacky as well. It's crude, it's rude. I don't find it funny. I don't like it. Glenn, Chucky and
I was waiting for you. Like, when is she going to talk about Glenn, Glenda?
Why is that poor creature so ugly?
Oh my God. So off-putting. But it's Chucky's child. You have to think. Tiffany's genes, your beautiful genes, can't solve every problem.
Gorgeous, a goddess. Chucky, well, Chucky's Chucky. But Glenda, I love Glenda, but why are they so ugly? Yeah, they're really off-putting. But I will say, I think this movie was very much ahead of its time and borderline genius. I feel just like the general kind of like the hive mind of the world was not there to bring that movie to its full potential. But I do see Don Mancini's vision, and he was a visionary. So I have a lot of respect for this movie.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. I have a very, very, very similar frame of mind here. Absolutely about this one. Because I also had that question. I'm like, wait, I think this movie actually took me the longest to figure out. And I'm still kind of questioning how I feel about it. So you kind of articulated that pondering, that query of like, wait, do I like this? Or is this actually the most horrendous movie I've ever seen in my life? So weird, so random.
Maybe it's like, it's like that ugly. I think it's a parallel with Glenda. It's just like that ugly child. No one really knows what it is, but everyone kind of loves it.
Absolutely. It's the perfect encapsulation of that. We had some folks who joined us here. Hello, Alicia. Thanks for being here. Let us know if you've ever seen any Chucky movies and if you have any faves or least faves. Halco gave us their rating. So if we're going to, in order of best to worst, so let's go to the far end of that. Seed, Cult, Curse are their last three. And you would agree with that?
Yeah, mostly. We're not too far off.
Yes. And Halco's laughing. And Liz is helping us kind of understand marketing a little bit more of Chucky because it's so like commodified and merchandised. She read an article that said Chucky sprang from Don Mancini watching the Cabbage Patch craze. I think that was 80s.
Yeah.
And thinking he should write a dark satire about how merchandising impacts children. Did you know this?
I did, because I watched also like a Chucky documentary. So
you did your homework. I gotta watch that one. I think that's the one that's like on like Tubi or something like that, right?
I watched it on Amazon Prime. Yeah, but I don't know in the US where it would be available.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm thinking the same thing. Yeah, I should probably go back and watch that so I can have like the context. I love that idea of any kind of intersection of like horror and like class capitalism. Like that's very, very fascinating to me. And I can see that.
Yeah.
I could see
I'm just checking my notes to make sure I don't forget anything. As a fun fact, Seed of Chucky was released on my birthday. So yes, I am a child of, I'm literally a child of Chucky.
Wait, that's actually hilarious. You were the seed.
Yes. Oh my God.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing, some more things that we can discuss, but nothing that's like urgent. Okay.
Okay, awesome. And then now we have going in, we have your worst, which is Curse of Chucky. Then still kind of in that category of disliked is Child's Play 3. We move forward bits where you don't necessarily hate these, but you like them, but you have to rank them somehow.
Exactly.
Swinging at Seed of Chucky. And then we have Cult of Chucky, which takes place in another like isolated area. Not isolated, but more like, what do you call those?
Like a single setting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and this is the mental institution.
Yeah. So I guess Cult of Chucky ranks a little bit towards the lower end, because I can't shake the feeling that obviously the representation of psychiatric disorders may be a bit problematic, if we're being completely honest.
Yep.
However, if we are going to be forgiving in that department, I do love the aesthetic of it. I really like the contrast of the really bright colored Chucky with kind of like these very sterile, bright white settings they have. Because even the scenes that happen outside are in the snow. So it's all just like really blindingly white. And then you have like little rainbow Chucky running around like, you know?
Yes,
so
there's that contrast.
I like that. Another thing that I really, really enjoyed about this one was it felt kind of like the pinnacle of all the characters from the original, like older movies coming together, fulfilling the roles. And I just really, really enjoyed that. And I like the concept. I like this sense of confusion of what the hell is going on. I don't want to spoil anything if people are, this is not a huge spoiler, but basically at some point you have like multiple Chucky dolls. And I think that kind of like gives you that feeling from the first movie where you're like, which doll, you know, who's alive, who isn't alive, and what's going on.
Yes. So, yeah. I read somewhere that idea was actually something they wanted to do way earlier on, like have a million Chuckies running amok. But I think it was maybe like the sequel. But they didn't have the budget for that, and they didn't have the technology developed yet to do that. So I think this is kind of like, finally, we can do this.
Yes. Okay. Cool. And I love the part with grown-up Andy now, and basically what he does in this movie. I love that.
Oh, yes. Yeah. I was so confused with what was, I feel like I thought I knew what I was getting myself into with this movie, but then it totally ended up being something different. So I was like, wait, did I read the back of this? Like, I got it so wrong.
And I think this one, like really from the more modern movies where you obviously have a bigger range of like practical effects available to you, these nailed the kill scenes for me. Whereas obviously Curse of Chucky, for me, all the kills were boring. These ones I was again like, yeah, this is what Chucky would do. We are back on track.
WWCD, what would Chucky do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. But there is one kill scene in this movie, in Cult of Chucky, that I realized was done the same in Bride of Chucky. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yes. I was like, watching this, I'm like, why does this feel so familiar?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if that was intentional or they're running out of ideas.
I would think intentional, because I don't think they would run out of ideas. But yeah, not
Yeah,
sure.
probably
Not sure.
intentional. Hopefully intentional. And
Yeah,
then
I hope
moving
so.
forward, Michelle.
Original
Really?
child.
Really, Michelle? Explain
Um,
yourself.
defend myself. I feel. I mean, obviously, Child's Play the original is great and an icon. And I mean, as I said, I had to rank these movies, and I do love this movie, but I'm gonna defend the ones that are above it. There's nothing wrong with this one. It's amazing. It's perfectly great. I think maybe it's just purely because it's such like baby Chucky. It hasn't achieved full icon status. So I don't know. I feel like it's just great, but don't know. I need like a little extra.
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. I need a little oomph. You need like the
Exactly.
personality to be way more like
Yeah.
formed.
Yeah, I feel
Gotcha.
like here Chucky has like a very clear objective. He wants to get into this child's body, and he's just going for it. But and also in this one, he's not supposed to be funny. He's just like serial killer Chucky, and he's like an evil doll. So I feel like he's not as endearing to me as in the other movies, and I really enjoy that mixture of his comedic bits, his cheekiness. Yeah, that's the only reason.
Good point. Yes. Yeah. He definitely does not have that well-rounded personality that we
Mhm.
have known him for. This is kind of
Yeah,
just showing the dimension of his villain status.
exactly. Exactly.
There's not much to sympathize with this. Like he's literally
No,
a murderer, like a criminal, like
yeah,
trying to
yeah,
steal the soul of a little kid. So
yeah. It's not nice.
zero redeeming qualities. Okay, so now we're getting into some like best like fave territory.
Yeah. So top three, I think. Yeah.
I don't know what you're thinking. So tell me. So we made a choice where we also included the reboot. Many of you
Mhm.
aren't ranking that. That's totally fine. Let us know what your reboot thoughts are. And what are yours? Why would you put this so high up?
So actually, I think for me, reboot and original are very similarly matched. So actually, this is also one that I really struggled to place those. And I think maybe the reboot got a little bit the edge just because of recency bias. I watched it at the end, so I was like, yeah, I enjoyed this movie. Um, I mean, I'm surprised. I'm surprised you're so surprised because I really like this movie. I like the whole cast of characters, everyone they add to get killed. I thought they really brought something to the movie, like the mom's boyfriend, who is clearly the character you're supposed to hate and be happy when he dies. But then the I love how they mirrored the police officer here to the police officer in the original one. Um, and his whole kind of like little side storyline that he has, I enjoyed it. I will consider it like some glaring issues with how the Chucky this Chucky doll reacts to certain situations, and some decisions, and how he chooses to do the things he does. I think it was not very clear, but I think, I mean, I liked it. I liked the action. I liked the kills. I liked kind of like the building of the tension, and I just liked how epic the closing scenario was.
Yes, I'll give it that. Yeah, very epic scenario, like at the end, where everything is kind of like coming to a head there, and like the reveal about the little buddy doll. And you're in the majority. Like I read a line, people when this came out, positive reviews from critics and
Hmm.
positive reviews from people in the fandom too. So you're in good company.
I think if there's anything, I mean, and this is again just my emotional attachment to the franchise, but I know that all the original creators were not involved. And I tried to research a little bit online, and I get the feeling that nothing has been explicitly said, but there seems to be some kind of like beef there, or kind of it just seems to be a little bit of infighting, not infight, but conflict, some kind of conflict. So presumably I'm thinking that creative differences just were too much. And yeah, I think that maybe people were expecting something very different to what we got. And I kind of almost feel that that could have been resolved if the reboot had acknowledged the existence of the paranormal possessed Chucky. And this just happened that it wasn't it, but they kind of like wanted, maybe the company wanted to make more sales by using the Chucky's image and likeness. I think that would have been a very interesting idea, because then it would have been like, oh, everybody expects this to be like the possessed doll, and when things start happening, that increases the disbelief. I think I would have liked that, but probably there were too many creative differences to come to an agreement there.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I would have loved to use the lore of the entire franchise as like backing for this like new story, this like new reimagining of his backstory. And what I read online is that they went ahead with this reboot without any of the original people, like you mentioned, and they wanted to. They came to Don Mancini after, and asked him like, "Okay, do you want to be like the executive producer?" And he actually had like a lot of hurt feelings about like his, actually his literal child, like his brainchild, his creation being rebranded and redone outside of like his, authorization, his kind of creative control. And he definitely said like, no, like I do not want any of this like connected to me, because you guys went around me rather than with me, which it's kind of wild for a studio to do something like that when it's like so deeply connected to one specific creator. Like it's literally like him I think of, and I don't think of anybody except maybe like Wes Craven when I think of like big important creators that like are attached to certain people, or like Carpenter. Like there's these certain names, and Mancini is definitely up there as like one of those big names. So to go around somebody like that's like that prolific after 3 decades, that's wild to me.
I mean, it's crazy. I think Don Mancini did the first movie when he was like 24. He was like in his mid-20s, so he was like so young himself. And yeah, he literally devoted his whole life to this franchise. So yeah, I can definitely see how there can be a bit of bad blood there. And I think that also maybe a positive is that motivated him to do the TV show. So
I think there is I think the question of a sequel is kind of dead in the water from what I've heard as well, because he started his TV show. And I think I also read somewhere that like he named it Chucky and not Child's Play, because I think that one studio has like the rights to Child's Play rather than Chucky. Did you read that as well?
I didn't know, but I was wondering why he named it Chucky. I thought that maybe now the name is so iconic that he just wanted to, utilize that.
Yeah, I think it might be a rights thing.
That's crazy, actually.
I know. It's all that backstory. It's very fascinating, very political, the whole like studio rights, creation, creativity stuff. But also Hauko enjoyed the reboot as well. I think a lot of people don't like it because they expect original Chucky. That's very true.
Yeah.
And then Melissa gave their ranking from best to worst. So they said numero uno is going to be Bride, then the first Chucky, then the sequel, Colts, the third, Curse, and then Seed at the very end. So let's see what you put as your top 2, and let's see if it aligns with, because you do have some things that are remaining there. So let's see if you also love Bride as much as Melissa. Okay, we have Bride.
Bride is my number 2, but I do want to say I am obsessed with Bride of Chucky. Bride of Chucky, I don't know, I feel like in some way it also defined me as a horror fan, because when I first saw Bride of Chucky, I was like, I didn't know horror could be so humorous. And obviously, we get the introduction of Tiffany, that is legendary. She is an icon by her own right. I love her. And also in this movie, they debut Chucky's new appearance now that he's been all like cut up. So I think it really injected some freshness into the franchise. This is much more aligned to my sense of humor. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed also Tiffany's character arc and how everything comes together in the end. I think the ending is iconic as well because we also get a little glimpse of what's to come instead of Chucky. I think it's one of the best endings I've ever seen in a horror movie. My jaw drops every time I watch this movie, and I've watched it probably tens of times.
And what do you think about all of the references to a very iconic Universal Monsters movie?
Which one? Oh,
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I was like, from the very opening scene when she's sewing him up. Yeah, I mean,
I didn't even
yeah,
catch that one. That's actually amazing. There's like tons of allusions and references to Frankenstein, and there's some that I picked up, like her last line she says in the entire movie. But then, like, there's some really subtle ones, like you just mentioned, with her,
mhm,
being basically
mhm.
Victor Frankenstein. That's wild.
And I feel like there's even a reverse Frankenstein because the way Tiffany dies and her soul goes into the doll is Chucky electrocutes her in the bathtub. So I feel like that's kind of like pulling a reverse Frankenstein to like the whole electricity kind of thing.
Oh my god, I didn't even get that. Oh my god. And I literally oh my god, I had like my whole Mary Shelley March. Brilliant. That is so true. Yes, with
Yeah,
Universal Monsters, like that's what brings him to life.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is why I love doing this with other people, because I just learned so much. Okay, yes, you're so right. That's so true. Okay,
I
fabulous.
think
Awesome.
it's not so fresh in my mind as yours. So yeah, maybe I missed some of the more soul references.
No,
But
you got more than me.
I don't know. To me, this is honestly genius. Yeah, it's I love it.
Yes, and we have Halka over here switching bride and 3 on my ranking. And why Child's Play 2
Oh,
as your numero uno? Because again, you mentioned like Curse of Chucky, Child's Play 3. They're really far on the worst side. But then
yeah.
everything from Seed of Chucky all the way to your first one, those are all really liked, but you just had to like rank them.
So as I mentioned before, I think Child's Play 1, 2, and 3, they follow an exact same formula. So obviously Child's Play 1, the doll is created. But in both 2 and 3, they both begin with the doll being put back together with some part of the previous doll being infused into the new doll. And that's how the soul of Charles Lee Ray gets transported into the new doll. And then we have the thing where it just happens that the doll gets back to Andy, and then people around Andy start dying, and Andy saying it's Chucky, and no one believes him. And then you have these random characters that are just there to die, and then there's always these female character most of the time, or like very strong female presence that's helping Andy out, and then it all comes to head in like this very epic showdown between Andy and the friend and Chucky. So that's a basic formula, and all 3 movies follow this. And
So
I think,
true.
yeah, and I think Child's Play 2 did this to perfection. I love what's her name? The Kyle. Oh my god, Kyle, my
Kyle.
90s icon,
Yes.
Kyle. I need to be Kyle at some point in my life, except that I don't smoke, but I want to be in the laundry room wearing my hat and smoking my cigarette. She's so cool.
So
And
cool.
she's so cool. And I love that. She's a good person as well. And she's like, no, Andy's my little brother, and I'm gonna go help him. And you won't let me lie, the scene in the toy factory, that whole sequence is one of the most epic horror
Yep.
sequences I've
Yep.
ever watched. It has like this perfect balance between the violence and the blood and the bright colors and campiness of just like this toy factory. Um, Also, what I really love about this movie is that at this point, it's now too late for the Charles Lee Ray's soul to get out of the doll. So the doll is basically becoming human, and that introduces a super interesting element, which now, well, that happens in the first one as well, but I feel like it's more solidified here, that now people can actually hurt Chucky in the same way that Chucky can hurt them. Like literally, he has like blood and guts and all of those things, and that raises the stakes because now Chucky is like literally flesh and blood. But I feel like that's when you start to feel sympathy towards him, and I really have it seared into my brain, this factory scene where he's put into like this thing that attaches all the parts to the dolls,
Oh,
and
yes.
they put him there, and this thing starts going off and melting him and attaching things to him, and he's like screaming in agony, and you're like, oh my god, that's gnarly. So yeah, I feel like that whole sequence, perfection.
Yes, and I love that you synthesized the template for a Chucky movie, like the most
Mhm.
basic template. What sticks out to me as being really interesting is how there is always that female character that
Yeah.
is helping him along in some way, whether it's Tiffany as a doll, there's Kyle, there is later down the road, uh not Nora. What's her name?
Nika.
Nika, yeah, it's a really unique name. Yeah, Nika, that's like against her will, like very not
Yeah.
consensually helping him out. Like there is always some female character, and that's fascinating to me. Why do you think? Why not like a male character? I mean, you do see some boys here and there, like in the reboots and
Mhm.
camp with, there's Andy, but he's definitely like they're against each other,
Yeah.
um, in many ways. I don't know. Why do you think that's the case?
I don't know. I think even from the beginning, when you have like the mom, and obviously she's a bit resistant at first, but I think you always have these kind of like a female presence that is more sympathetic to Andy, maybe a bit more understanding, and being like, I don't know if I truly believe this or not, but I'm on your side.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I don't exactly know why the choice was made or how intentional it was, but I think it just definitely follows throughout the whole franchise, and it's something that I really enjoyed as well.
Something I was just thinking as you're talking is like, I wish that the mother of Andy would have stuck around a little bit longer as
Yeah.
opposed to like off scene, like just kind of pushing her to the
Yeah,
side.
that's true. Yeah, that's true. I think I do remember noting that it was like really sad when it's revealed that she's basically been put in a mental institution. Because
That just
also,
seemed too easy for me. Also, the
yeah,
little girl too, at the start of Cult of Chucky, like there's just
yeah,
so much like off scene. Like, what we need to do something with them, so we'll say and do something off scene.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
kind of strange to me.
yeah. I think yeah. I guess at some point there's too many threads to tie down, and then I guess if you don't have the actors willing to come back, it can get kind of messy. But yeah, I
Absolutely.
agree with that.
And then speaking of female characters, we have some Kyle love in the house.
Yeah,
Loved
amazing.
them. Okay, so we'll compare both of ours once I share mine. So I know, so exciting. Okay. So I'll do mine kind of in groups so you can kind of see how I rank these and then like the space in between them. So I'll start with my least enjoyed here.
Hey. Oh my god.
So this is the first batch of like I immensely disliked these
Yeah. Okay,
right
clearly
here.
we agree on curse. So do you want to elaborate on that a little bit first?
Yes. Okay. So Child's Play the reboot. So I'll give a reminder here. I've never seen any of these movies before. Up until this year. So January 1st, I was like, my goal is to watch every Chucky movie in the entire franchise, even that reboot. And then when I watched the reboot very recently, because I went in chronological order of release, I realized like I've seen this movie before. It's so familiar. I don't know when, how, I have no information, but it was in my head and I knew it was happening. So I don't know if that kind of colored my experience, but knowing that it was just like a redo of a movie where I felt like the first one
Mhm.
was so great. Like my heart wasn't in it, especially when I learned that the creators and people who were part of this franchise for like 30 years were not attached to this at all. And it just felt like you mentioned, not as funny
Mhm.
and not as humorous as the other one. He just that Chucky in Child's Play, I just couldn't connect with because He wasn't funny. He didn't have any depth to him. I think the one plus of this movie is, and also I didn't really care about any of the characters in this movie. I was so sad when that mother of the detective died. I was like, really, truly, like she was so great. But the one thing I think I did really like about Child's Play reboot is that you have a different backstory, because I've always just found it silly to use like voodoo as a way to demonize, and like the history of that is so inaccurate. And I get it's like a movie and stuff. So I really appreciated a different way of framing his origin story around something that pushes further the social commentary regarding work, capitalism, productivity, toys, marketing. Like I think the Child's Play origin story of the Buddy doll is far more interesting to me. I just don't think they really push that commentary later down the road in that movie, which I led me to be pretty disappointed. And then just adding in here, Liz mentioned that it's so wild about the origins of the reboot. She always just assumed Mancini had been consulted about the movie, but pulled a David Lynch and opted out later down the road. So yeah, I think that's like why it didn't like color my experience too well on that.
Yeah, I think you're right in that it really, it's a big impact to not have Chucky being an actual person, so to speak.
Exactly. Yes, that connection was definitely not there. And then I kind of lump Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky together because I know totally though. I can't like. First of all, I was so confused in Cult of Chucky. I was like, you found that enjoyable, that confusion. And me, I was like, wait, what's going? Like, is there a real one? Like, how did he do this? Like, in his Voodoo for Dummies book, is this actually a thing? Like, they just kind of make things in these movies, so I don't know why I'm not used to it. They just like pull out random facts and ways of doing things, and I'm just like, oh wait, we can do that. That wasn't mentioned in the other movie. Or that character is like so random, came out of nowhere. But they're like the cousin or the sister or the girlfriend. So all those things, I'm like, okay. And I didn't like how dark color-wise Curse of Chucky was, and I didn't like how like bright Cult of Chucky was.
I liked them aesthetically. I really liked that dark and bright. That's interesting.
I really love the colorful camp toy store core aspects of the first original movies.
Yeah.
The high saturation.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yes. I that was lost. And so I think it was just like confused too about where until the very like it's probably what like the last maybe 30 minutes of Curse of Chucky we find out why we're with this family.
Oh yeah, and I actually didn't even like that because I didn't really think it fit like the lore of Chucky. Like Charles Lee Ray was supposed to be like these serial killer, but then he suddenly turns out that he was like obsessed with these lady. And then there's one of the continuity errors that really bothered me is that they link these two scenes where he's escaping the police because he has kidnapped this woman, and then that's how he ends up dead. In the toy shop, in the original, we know that they're kind of like doing something else, and he has like his friend waiting for him in the car, and then that's just completely disregarded. And I was like, well, that's not how things played out. So that annoyed me. And the other thing that I found super annoying is at some point Chucky gets hurt, but he has like doll material coming out. I'm like, no, at this point, Chucky's like full human blood and guts. So that also annoyed me. And I don't know why that decision was made.
That's a very good question. I would totally be down for, adding more, learning more about what went down that one day, that one night before he becomes a doll. I'm down for that. But the continuity, you make a really good point.
Yeah.
Is really off. It's not aligning.
I think if they had managed to link those two in a better way, it would have been like excellent. But
yes, yeah. I love lore. I love backstory. So I'm down for that. If it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is my chunk at the very end of the spectrum of like worst. But I mean, I didn't hate everything. I found Cult of Chucky to be a little bit more enjoyable. Like you mentioned earlier, the problematic nature of like mental institutions. I think what I appreciate about this series, it's not necessarily saying that like these things are good. There's always like that level of like the person who's wielding this is bad. So, I mean, in one way, you could argue that having a abusive, horrible therapist and mental health professional in that space is, really pushing narratives of mental health institutions that are counterproductive because people need to be seeking out more mental health services, and the stigma is always there. So one argument could be made that that's like kind of making the stigma worse. But in other cases, it could be highlighting the history of horrible mental health institutions, which is totally a reality now and then in the past for sure.
And I think that it's also
I'm out my
circling back to this point where people who are mentally ill or that have some sort of psychiatric disorder, they always are very vulnerable in the way that whenever they are in real danger, they may be less likely to be believed or taken seriously. So obviously here the Chucky aspect is one part of it, but obviously, as you mentioned, we have a very real scenario where you have the abusive therapist.
Yes. Yeah. So I like that depth of like changing your lens, and you could kind of see that movie in many ways. But I still kind of when I'm thinking about the ending of Cult of Chucky, I still don't know how I feel about that quick fix at the end. Fix in quotation marks here, with the change once Chucky succeeds. There's just this easy thing. I don't know if it's like a spoiler or not, but you absolutely know what I'm talking about when it comes like this ability, this change, and it's like so convenient. And it just makes me curious what it would have looked like an ending when that wasn't a part of their universe, because that definitely was a choice to just decide to quote unquote fix her once Chucky is successful in taking over Nika's body.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I like the ending, but as I said, I guess it's in the context of the whole franchise.
Yeah.
And I think maybe a little bit fan service as well, because people want to see Tiffany and Chucky,
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I just think it was like a little too convenient to have her just like stand up out of her chair. And it's like, okay, because Chucky is, I mean, you wouldn't even call him like as a toy able-bodied. Like the world isn't made for a toy the size that Chucky is. So to me, it kind of dilutes a little bit of like representation of disabled people as being capable to navigate the world.
I agree. I agree with you on that. And I think maybe it would have been powerful to have the exact same ending, but using Nika's wheelchair.
Yes. Yeah. And I loved because I think that the ending of Cult of Chucky with Tiffany there, and then they're like making out, I think it just highlights and makes it very like clear. Like if you had any questions about this movie being just like a queer franchise, like you do not after this. I appreciate that about this series.
Yeah.
Okay, so now getting to my best, I'll just put them all out here because they're all like, I love all of the rest of the movies, and then the first one is like a huge gap in terms of how much I love it. So you can see all the ones I love, and then my last one is like my favorite. Take a guess. Which one do you think is my all-time favorite? What do you think?
I feel like it's going to be either the original or Bride.
Okay. If you had to choose one of those two, which one do you think is my fave?
Oh no, I'm gonna say original.
Okay, let's see. There's Seed of Chucky, Child's Play 3. Oh, whoops, there's yours.
Oh no.
Let's go back. Child's Play original, Child's Play 2, Bride of Chucky.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy with these results.
What are you happy
about? I feel like even though I placed Bride lower down in my ranking, I just love seeing it getting the love it deserves, because I think it truly is a masterpiece.
Oh, 100%. And it's so great because if you wanted to, you could literally never see any of the Chucky movies, but then watch Bride of Chucky as a standalone and have the best time of your life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So good. So amazing. And when I watched Bride of Chucky, I came in with so much hype, so much expectation. I had enjoyed all the other movies before that. And as you can tell, 1, 2, and 3 are some of my top movies. And then immediately you watch Bride of
Yeah.
Chucky, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yes, this is the pinnacle of my Chucky obsession. And then everything just like kind of falls down from there, if
Oh
you
no.
notice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I loved it for its Frankenstein references, and you're teaching me more with this live stream what I missed. I loved being able to learn about Tiffany because I've heard so much about her, and I love what I got to know about her. I love her personality. I love that she's so like emotional and vulnerable and yet ruthless. I fucking
Exactly.
love that. It's so good.
I mean, she is a ruthless killer, but then she very clearly is willing to say, I want an epic love, I deserve an epic love, and I will take nothing less than that love that I deserve. And that is so brave of her. Oh my god.
So brave, and it's so hilarious to imagine like this ruthless killer saying like, I want a love story of a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Like that's the kind of humor I love, where it's the contrast, it's the juxtaposition. It's not like a potty like joke, it's just so funny.
Yeah. Another thing I noticed in that movie is that really the whole movie is always rotating around this theme of love, because we have Tiffany and Chucky basically hitchhiking with this couple that are running away together, and they are in love, even though at some point they suspect that the other one may be killing people. But also again, I feel this is the first time Don Mancini introduces a gay character. So they have their gay friend that was pretending to be the boyfriend. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But he's also there supporting them and giving them like friendship in this very particular way. And even in the kills, when we have these honeymooners that just happen to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, yeah, I don't know. I feel like it follows this theme all the way through, and I think it does really build up to like an epic love story.
Yes, you're right. It's so much of like the love theme of like queer love, right? And the complications of that, of having to navigate a very like heteronormative society. And then you have this
Exactly.
Romeo and Juliet young couple that are so naive and so hopeful, but like you love that because that's so nice as young people to have that, and adults don't have that anymore. And then you
Yeah.
have what you mentioned, like the theme of like a honeymooners, right? Like maybe they're just married and they're in this honeymoon suite. And then you have this concept of like, what is it like for villains, for the bad guys to be in love? Like, can they be in love? I love
Yeah,
that.
exactly. And I'm sorry, but I found the doll sex scene that it's only the
Oh my God,
shadow.
how have
So
we
it's
not
like
talked about that yet?
it's so funny, but it's like these kind of like artistic shadow.
That's the humor I'm talking about. Like, it's so silly, but then they also took it so seriously.
Yeah, yeah,
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And imagine being the animatronics people. Like, I had the DVDs for this, for all of the movies. I got
oh
them from my
wow.
library. Thank you, public libraries. We love you. And I was able to see behind the scenes content. Do you have an image in your head of like what these puppeteers look like and like what they're
Yeah,
doing?
because I saw them in the documentary, and actually, because the documentary is made by the daughter of the head puppeteer, so the
Okay.
role of the puppeteers is like really highlighted. And then you see them filming the scenes, and they're just like with their hands moving the puppets around. So that must have been so funny as well.
Literally, so hilarious. How goes cackling? Yes, it's so funny. It's so funny.
Yeah,
Um,
I
and
loved
yeah,
it.
and so Child's Play 1, 2, 3, and then Bride of Chucky, like I was just like riding this high because as you helped me figure out, I love Child's Play. I thought it was a great introduction. I love the camp. I love the characters, like the mother. Like it's just so easy to empathize with the good guys in that movie.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
mentioned like I feel like that's why I didn't rank it. I don't think I had my understanding yet verbalized clearly when I was
Hmm.
doing this. There's a reason why it's not number one or number two. It's funny because your number one is Child's Play 2, and that's my number two.
Yeah,
I think we're on the same wavelength here. Like we needed a little bit more of a well-developed Chucky as a
exactly.
character, and then we hadn't yet gotten like I guess, a little bored of like the repetitive nature. But honestly,
Exactly.
I could have taken that repetitiveness until the very end of this franchise, I think, because then when it changes a little bit, his motivations and his goals, and we add in a different group of characters, because I don't think Andy really shows up in Seed or Curse, but he's in Cult.
Yeah. So actually, he's in the post credit scene of Curse.
Okay.
He receives a Chucky doll, which is actually leading into Cult, because we know that the doll ends up going with the little girl, but then we also see Andy getting another doll delivered. So I was confused. I was like, wait, where did the doll go? And then in Cult, we learned that that's why Andy has this Chucky that he's been basically torturing.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for reminding me of that. If there's one thing I mean, there's a lot of things I appreciate, but one of the biggest things I appreciate about this entire franchise is that they have a plan. Like, this is not just to make money. Like, obviously it is, but like, there's a creative vision here that I
Yes.
have to respect. Like, there's an arc, and they're hoping that there's enough like momentum and money and funds to have the vision realized with like a new
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that they know what the plan is.
Yeah, and I think another reason why it stayed so relevant is that obviously personally we have our own preferences on whether we like more the slasher Chucky or the humorous Chucky, or what we prefer. But really, Don Mancini was always very aware of what kind of horror was hitting at that moment, because when around the time Bride and Seed came out, it was all these like kind of like more goofy, more crude, even horror movies, and he really hit the nail there. The originals obviously were coming of this huge slasher boom, and they really follow a very slashery formula. And then with the last two, even if they didn't work as well for us, it was a time when horror was becoming again more serious. So I think he was very smart in ensuring that at least the people would get it.
So I think what you're saying, which is really interesting, is that one could view the past 30 years of horror trends through the franchise of Chucky Child's
Yes.
Play.
And that's why I said in the beginning that I think the horror franchise just encapsulate what it's like living through horror as a horror fan, living your life as a horror fan, growing up as a horror fan, and just the world, the world moving and time passing by as a horror fan. And I think it's just like an amazing slice of history of horror media.
Oh, that is so true. Hako's like, yes, snaps.
We
And
love it.
I'm assuming that, like, if Kyle's showing up in the post credit on Colts, that maybe they had a plan for her if this whole Child's Play reboot didn't happen. Like, what do you think that could have looked like if Cult of Chucky, because, you know, we have these trends here of like whether it's the actual ending of a movie or a post credit scene leading into the next movie, what do you think that could have looked like with Kyle as a major part of the story for another movie?
Yeah, I'm not sure what their plans were. I think they always wanted to keep this cohesive cast of characters. I haven't watched the TV show, but just like based on the very little things, tidbits I know, I think that Don Mancini always wanted to kind of like solidify basically the franchise and Chucky as like a queer icon. So I wonder if there were like specific plans for Nika Chucky and Tiffany, or Tiffany Jennifer, or what the deal was. I would hope that they want to bring Glenda back, because I do miss that ugly, ugly.
So ugly, it's cute.
Yeah. It's like one of those like dogs that are like so ugly. You're like, yes.
It's probably why I love pugs so much. Oh, my number one. Yes.
Yeah.
That's such a good point. So, comparing them, I have my last slide right here is at the top is your rankings. At the top, at the bottom is mine. And seeing here, like, I think I know there's like some nuance differences, but I think at our core, we really do enjoy the beginning movies,
Yeah.
and things just kind of like we kind of go up, woo. And I think like Bride maybe kind of like yours is a little bit like less of a drop. Mine's
Yeah.
more of a significant drop.
Yeah. But I'm so happy. I'm so happy for our top twos being our top twos.
That's actually so funny that we
Yeah.
have the same top twos.
And it's really funny because my top two really, one is the heart winner, which is Bride, and the mind winner, which is Child's Play 2. So I think Child's Play 2 is, as a formula, a better movie, but I'm just in love with Bride.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I cannot, like you mentioned earlier, get out of my head that whole toy store scene. I'm so happy they spent so much time there. I love that it was like this labyrinth. I love that he died a million times in many ways. Like they probably have so much fun in the writer's room choosing a setting and then like making all these like ideas up, just ideating on like how can we destroy Chucky or a person? Like they use the setting really well.
And because he's so resilient, and it's actually part of the template that he keeps coming back and back and back and back. You can really pile on the things because you can be like, yeah, and then we melt him, and then we burn him, and then we tear out his face, and then we cut off his legs, and he just keeps coming back.
Yes, exactly. And that part of it, I don't think ever got like annoying to me in a movie level. Then the franchise, I don't think it's, I don't start to feel fatigued by Chucky. Like I'm somebody that I feel like if you just give me something logical, that's like also like a continuity piece in there. Like I could get behind people coming back into life.
Yeah,
that's great. When Chucky puts the knife into his wrist, that scene gets me. There's just so many ways that you can destroy a little doll. And then Liz mentioned here, love how different y'all's rankings are from mine. So great hearing what resonated and didn't for others. So I know, yeah, it's so interesting. So let's go back to Liz's ranking.
Yeah, I'm from Bride. I mean, yeah, Bride and Seed.
Bride forever.
I'm actually happy that Seed really worked for you, because I think Seed is also great, but just it's not my sense of humor. But I definitely see the potential. Curse is really high for you.
Yeah, I'd be curious, Liz, like what your thoughts on enjoying.
What did you like? What did you like about it?
It's very like, when did that come out? 2010s?
Mm-hmm.
I'll look up a little Curse.
I think I have. So Cult.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah, 2013.
Yeah, 2013.
Yeah, that's like the time, the era of horror being just like grimy, gross, dark, just kind of like slash and dash. Like that's an iconic moment in horror, and I could see that coming through with this movie.
And I'm just saying that Bride was actually 1998, which is slightly earlier than I thought. Because it comes across very 2000s to like early.
Oh, does it?
To me? Yeah,
I think so 90s.
I think
that's why I love it.
No, I mean I love the 90s as well, but there was something about the humor that to me read a bit later. But I guess, I guess that's why it was so visionary.
Yeah, very much ahead of its time. And I love Bride for just being like Child's Play 1, 2, and 3, just like high saturated colors. And we have the theme of love. Like it's such a perfect Valentine's movie to watch.
So perfect.
I could rewatch, like has so much rewatchability. A lot of these movies do.
Yeah. I love this scene where Tiffany has gone into the doll, and she's like, this doll is too boring, and then she redoes her makeup and her
makeover.
Oh my god, I love it so much.
I love it too. And I think one of my questions here is, have folks seen the Chucky series? Do you recommend it for people who haven't ever seen it? You mentioned you've never seen the Chucky series before. Would you watch it?
Yes, 100%. I'm very excited to watch it, actually.
So you're going to like recently, or is it kind of like, is it a priority? Is it kind of something you'll do like eventually?
I think just because I've obviously been watching the movies like back to back, I would say maybe towards the end of summer, I would start watching it. I don't know if someone could tell me if it has like summery vibes or if it's just like neutral. I don't know. I would like to know.
Oh
How
yeah, like
about
the
you?
first season. Yeah, I would definitely like 100%. I'm gonna watch the series. I know it's still ongoing. Season 3, I feel like I've seen just like little snippets here and there. No spoilers, I don't
Mhm.
think, about the whole purpose of it. I think there's a lot of
Mm.
backstory you get on Charles Lee Ray, and I think Andy shows up. I think, well, obviously Tiffany's there for sure.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think Glenn Glenda might. Don't quote me on that. I think they might make an appearance. They might be in
Okay.
there,
Yeah.
but I don't remember. I'm trying to like not spoil it for me, so I think there's probably some Glenn Glenda.
Did they even mention what where Glenn Glenda is supposed to be? Because obviously, Tiffany has been very busy trying to get Chucky into a body and like helping him out, but I don't think they mention where do they leave their kid?
That's such a good point. Where, because if you remember
Their
at the
kids.
end,
There's two kids actually.
yeah, human kids. Like, where the heck are
Yeah.
they? They've never made an appearance. We have questions. So maybe it's answered in Chucky, the TV show. So Alco's mentioned that they've seen it and they like it. They all take place in fall or winter.
Perfect.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I'm stacked for summer, so that'd be nice to kind of pop in whenever I want, like a little Chucky fix. Okay, is there anything else you wanted to mention that like you kind of thought of after the fact when we're talking about Chucky? Anything
I
like that?
want to ask you if you have any favorite kill or favorite death, and the opposite, the least favorite death or your the least favorite kill.
Oh my gosh, such a good question. Okay, so it's very similar to something else I was going to mention here. So favorite scenes that still stick with you. Okay, so I really loved like the carnival scene in the third one where he like falls down, then he's like slice and dice, and then it comes back. I thought that
Yeah.
was really fun. But I also found the anytime that you have the slices coming down, but it feels a little repetitive because I've seen it twice with the franchise. And
Yeah.
then you've seen the House of the Fall of Usher, right?
No, no.
Oh, okay. So then there's mirror stuff happening in that
Okay.
as well. So I'm like, okay, this is like a little repetitive. Like people
Yeah.
need to do something different with that. But I love that electricity moment. That's one of my favorite scenes when like Tiffany transforms into her doll self. What about yourself?
I think my favorite kill was the one with the mirror ceiling, but I think for me I only liked the one in the motel because I think a big part of it is the waterbed, which
Oh
is
my
also
God.
90s.
Literally some 90s.
The one thing that I think they dropped the ball is that the way Chucky breaks the mirror is that he throws a champagne bottle up, and I think he should have uncorked it, and the cork shoot out, and then the champagne's going off. But maybe I'm being too nitpicky.
That could have been amazing. That could have been iconic.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I don't know if
If
they think that it didn't
only.
work out or it just didn't occur to them, but I thought that would have been like perfect.
Yeah, so true. I'm trying to think if there's any other scenes. Um, Obviously the falling out of the window of the babysitter. It's like the first
Oh yeah,
kill, I
yeah.
believe, in the entire franchise. That's pretty important. I thought it was pretty ruthless that they I guess killed the little girl who is the one we learn about in Curse of Chucky, but that's like an
Yeah,
off-screen thing.
yeah.
So I feel like that was just like a quick little like let's tie that thread moment.
Mhm.
And I think those are my favorite things. I mean, Chucky with like you mentioned with like the whole all the things inside of him, all
Yeah,
the hoses. I just love Child's Play 2, like the whole scene with that
that whole
toy
scene. Also,
store.
that there's a part where there's like this guy, this factory worker, and they put him in the conveyor belt, and then he gets like the plastic
Okay,
ice.
that's gruesome. It's so great.
So gross.
It kind of reminded me of like Roger Rabbit. Have you seen that movie?
No.
It's like this movie that's live action and cartoon, I think was made like in the 90s or maybe 80s, I don't know. And there's a character in Who Framed Roger Rabbit where they have like these cartoon eyes, but he's like a human. That's like kind of what it reminds me of. I love just anything that's like cartoon, high saturation, and that's what that movie
Yeah,
totally gave.
yeah, that was good.
The garbage truck in Child's Play 3. Wait, I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah,
That was good.
that was good too. How can I forget? That was
I think
good.
that
Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
that was my favorite scene in that movie. I think that really redeemed that movie for me, and then downhill. But well,
Daniel. I feel like that one is so scary because it's so realistic. Like it could
yeah,
happen to anyone. Like somebody could fall in. Like, where are the warnings on this? Where is the body scanning? Like, I don't.
yeah.
It's stressful. It stresses me out. Okay. Anything else you wanted to add about Chucky as we wrap things up?
No, that I think no. I think I've talked a lot, so I think I've said everything I needed to say.
I know it feels good to get my Chucky thoughts out.
Yeah,
It looks like we both are really excited to sooner rather than later watch the series. Thanks so much for folks chatting with us in
yeah.
the
Thank you.
live chat here. Yes, we're so excited. And then also, if you are in the like the playback and you're listening or watching after the fact, definitely let us know in the comments, what is your ranking? What do you think about certain movies over others? Do you have any favorite kills? Definitely let us know. Thanks, Halko, for hanging with
Thank
us.
you.
We appreciate that. And then I have Michelle's channel linked down below. So definitely subscribe to her. She talks about all things horror. I could watch you, listen to you chat about horror all day long. You're so awesome.
Oh, you have no idea how much I appreciate you giving me the time to say as much as I want to say, because I know that I just jump in and I'm like, blah, 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 but I just like get really excited about these topics. So
Oh yeah, I love the way that you talk about things, and it all like helps me figure out like how I feel too. And I think that's why live streams are so awesome compared to like sit down like pre-recorded videos, because
yeah,
we could literally talk like we did for an hour and 22 minutes, and that's we don't have to edit anything. It's all out there. It's all out there.
yeah, I had so much fun.
Thank you, Liz, for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So definitely don't forget to subscribe to Michelle if you haven't already. And we'll see you all in our next videos. Thanks again, friends.
Bye.
Bye.